Imagine the weight in your hands. It is the same weight you have lifted for months, perhaps years. You feel the familiar strain in your tendons, the heat rising in your chest, and the sweat pooling on the floor. Yet, for all this effort, the mirror tells a story of stagnation. Your muscles feel soft. The definition you once held so easily seems to have vanished behind a veil of biological resistance. You are pushing, pulling, and grinding, but the internal engine is not catching. It feels as if you are trying to start a high-performance car with a dead battery. This is the moment when most people simply walk away, convinced that their body has reached its natural limit, that the march of time has finally won. But what if the issue is not your effort? What if the problem is simply that you are sending a signal that your body no longer understands? To transcend this resistance, you must first understand the specific sensation of the body finally giving in to a stimulus after a long period of quiet. It is the transition from a mismatched signal to a precision signal. For the trainee who has passed the age of 40, the rules of the game have shifted. The youthful body was loud, responsive, and forgiving. It would grow from almost any physical insult you threw at it. But as the decades pass, the cellular environment becomes more selective. It is not that the over 40 body is broken or incapable of growth. Rather, it has become a more sophisticated lock that requires a very specific biological key to open. You have likely spent the last few years running in place, doing the same high-volume routines that worked in your 20s, only to find that they now produce more fatigue than muscle. You are stuck in a cycle of diminishing returns, where the volume of your work is high, but the resolution of the signal is low. This series is designed to move you from the frustration of why it is not working to the clarity of how it begins to work. We are entering the realm of anabolic reactivation. This is not a lucky break or a temporary surge in motivation. It is a controlled physiological event. Our core objective is the restoration of the mTORC1 pathway and the strategic recruitment of dormant satellite cells. Think of your muscle fibers as a vast landscape. Over time, parts of this landscape have gone fallow. The satellite cells, those essential stem cells that live along the basal lamina, have fallen into a deep sleep. They are waiting for a reason to wake up, to donate their nuclei, and to expand your potential for protein synthesis. This process requires an authoritative approach to your own biology. We are moving away from the loud, often hollow advice of general fitness circles and moving toward the cellular reality of the human frame. Your body has not forgotten how to grow. It is simply waiting for the correct sequence of instructions. It is waiting for you to speak its language. When you finally hit that frequency, the response is unmistakable. It is a feeling of density, a sense that the muscle is finally absorbing the work rather than just surviving it. This is the restoration of the mTORC1 and IGF-1 axis. As we begin this journey, we must look at the roles of mechanical tension and growth factors like IGF-1. These are not just scientific terms. They are the levers of your physical transformation. We are shifting our focus from the macro experience of just lifting weights to the micro reality of cellular signaling. We are looking for the precise anabolic insult that forces the body to prioritize growth over conservation. It is time to stop fighting against your biology and start working with it. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. The journey into the very heart of the muscle fiber is just beginning, and the path to reclaiming your physical foundation starts with understanding the signal. One precise movement, one specific load, and one focused intention at a time, we will unlock the architecture of your new self. The sarcopenic drift is not a sudden cliff that you fall over on your 40th birthday. Instead, it is a slow and persistent tide that begins to pull you away from the shore of physical vitality. To understand how to reverse this process, we must first map the biological resistance that has been working against you. Biologically, this drift is a shift in your metabolic balance. In your younger years, the rate of muscle protein synthesis easily outpaced the rate of protein breakdown. Your body was in a natural state of expansion, but as you cross the threshold of 40, that balance begins to tilt. The breakdown of muscle tissue remains constant, or even accelerates, while the machinery of synthesis becomes sluggish and less responsive. This is the silent reality of the sarcopenic drift. It is a state where your body is no longer interested in the luxury of muscle mass. It is focused on metabolic conservation. We must define the primary obstacle in this journey, which is known as anabolic resistance. This phenomenon explains why the strategies that worked for you at 25 seem to fail you now. For a younger trainee, a standard 20-gram dose of high-quality protein or a basic weightlifting session is a massive signal. It is a megaphone shouting at the cells to grow. However, in the mature body, that same stimulus is reduced to a whisper. The receptors on your muscle cells have become less sensitive to the anabolic cues of amino acids and mechanical load. This resistance means that even if you are consistent with your training and nutrition, you may not be providing a signal that is loud enough to overcome the internal noise of the aging process. You are providing a sub-threshold stimulus, a signal that is simply not strong enough to force the body out of its conservative state. At the heart of this resistance is the leucine trigger. Leucine is the specific amino acid that acts as the molecular key to unlock protein synthesis. In a young person, the leucine threshold is low, meaning it takes very little to get the engine started. For you, that threshold has moved higher. If your meals do not contain a sufficient concentration of leucine, or if your training does not prepare the muscle to receive it, the synthesis process never truly begins. You might be eating enough protein in total, but if you do not hit that peak leucine concentration in a single sitting, the signal is lost. This is why moderate, general training often leads to a state of frustration. It creates enough fatigue to make you feel like you have worked hard, but it fails to cross the biological line necessary to trigger actual adaptation. You end up in a no-man's land of fitness, where you are tired and perhaps even overtrained, yet your muscle tissue remains unchanged. While the leucine trigger handles the chemical side of the equation, the structural side is managed by satellite cells. These are specialized stem cells that live in a state of deep sleep along the basal lamina, which is the outer boundary of your muscle fibers. These are your reserve of growth potential. When a muscle fiber is properly stimulated, these cells wake up, multiply, and donate their nuclei to the existing fiber. This process increases the myonuclear domain, essentially giving the muscle fiber more command centers to manage protein synthesis. However, as we age, these cells enter a state of deep quiescence. They become harder to wake up. They require a specific type of mechanical tension to disrupt their slumber. When you engage in high-volume, low-intensity training, you are providing a noisy signal that does not resonate with these cells. They remain dormant, tucked away behind the basal lamina, while your muscle fibers slowly shrink from lack of structural reinforcement. The cost of sticking to a generalized fitness program after the age of 40 is the continued loss of this vital cellular response. Many trainees believe that more work is the answer, but in reality, they are just adding more noise to an already cluttered system. Imagine trying to listen to a specific radio station while your receiver is tuned slightly off frequency. You can hear the sounds of the broadcast, but it is distorted by static. No matter how much you turn up the volume, the music will never be clear. The energy is there, but the resolution of the signal is too low for the body to act upon it. This is why the over 40 body requires a precision stimulus. We are not looking for more work. We are looking for a more resonant signal. We are looking for the exact frequency that pierces through the static of anabolic resistance and reaches the dormant satellite cells waiting in the shadows of your anatomy. This is the first step in moving from stagnation to reactivation, turning the static of the sarcopenic drift into the clear, powerful music of growth. Your body has been waiting for the correct sequence, and now we must learn to provide it through the mechanics of the cellular pivot. To move beyond the static of the sarcopenic drift, the mature trainee must master the sophisticated process of mechanotransduction. This is the biological miracle where physical force is translated into chemical action within the deep architecture of the muscle fiber. Your muscle fibers are not just simple cables that pull on bone to create movement. They are highly specialized sensors that are constantly scanning their environment for information. When you place a load upon them, you are not just performing a mechanical task to move an object from one point to another. Instead, you are speaking to the cell in its native tongue. The quality of this tension determines every downstream response your body will make. If the tension is vague, poorly managed, or inconsistent, The cell remains indifferent and stays in its state of conservation. But when the tension is precise, sustained, and meaningful, it initiates a complex cascade of signaling proteins that begin the difficult work of cellular reconstruction. There is a specific moment in a well-executed set where the focus shifts from simply doing work to actually triggering an adaptation. This is the pivot point where progress is made or lost. For the over 40 trainee, this pivot requires a move away from the traditional preoccupation with the concentric or the lifting phase of an exercise. While lifting the weight is necessary, we must look more closely at the eccentric loading. This is the phase where the muscle is lengthening under extreme tension. It is during this controlled and deliberate descent that the most significant disruption occurs within the basal lamina. This physical agitation acts as the definitive alarm clock for those dormant satellite cells that have been sleeping for years. It creates a microscopic environment that demands immediate structural reinforcement. Without this specific type of mechanical stress, the signal remains far too weak to penetrate the deep quiescence of the mature biological state. You must be willing to lean into that tension, to wake up the potential that has been resting just beneath the surface of your anatomy. We must also learn to differentiate between the simple exhaustion of training hard and the strategic success of providing a precise anabolic insult. Training hard is often a measure of effort and sweat, but effort alone does not guarantee the growth you are seeking. High-volume training, often called junk volume, provides a high amount of fatigue with very little adaptive stimulus. It is a noisy, cluttered signal that the mature body eventually learns to ignore as a way to prevent systemic collapse. In contrast, a high-density signal focuses on the absolute intensity of the tension within each individual repetition. You are not merely trying to survive the workout or finish the number of sets. You are trying to provide a stimulus so clear and so unavoidable that the body has no choice but to respond with growth. This is the profound difference between a dull, generalized ache and a focused surgical strike against the sarcopenic drift. You must understand a fundamental truth of your own physiology. Your muscle does not know weight. It knows tension and the chemical cascade that follows. The iron in your hands is merely a tool, a means to an end to create that specific tension. If you move a heavy weight using momentum, gravity, or improper leverage, the muscle may move, but the intracellular signaling remains completely silent. To overcome age-related signaling barriers, your training must become high resolution. Every inch of a movement is a vital opportunity to amplify the signal. By slowing down the tempo and focusing intently on the internal sensation of the fiber stretching and contracting, you are increasing the resolution of the message you are sending to your DNA. You are turning the volume up on the music and silencing the static that has held you back for so long. Once this mechanotransduction is successfully achieved, the stage is set for the arrival of the master regulator. The precise mechanical load has served as the key to the lock, and the internal environment is now sensitized and ready. The localized release of IGF-1 is the next step in this biological sequence. It acts as a beacon for the rest of the cellular machinery, signaling that repair and expansion are now the priorities. This process effectively primes the primary master switch, known as mTORC1. With the mechanical foundation established, we enter the inner sanctum of the muscle fiber, where the true executive decisions are made. This is the realm of mTORC1, the mammalian target of rapamycin complex 1. Think of this protein complex as the primary nutrient and stress sensor of every cell in your body. It is the ultimate decision maker, a biological foreman that stands at the crossroads of your metabolism. Its job is to constantly weigh the incoming data from your environment to determine if the conditions are right for growth. It asks a simple but critical question. Is there enough energy and enough demand to justify the massive biological expense of building new muscle tissue? For the mature trainee, this sensor often becomes overly cautious and hesitant. As we age, the cellular environment tends to lean toward energy conservation rather than tissue expansion. The master regulator becomes less sensitive to the signals that once triggered easy growth in youth. It requires a much more convincing argument to flip the switch from a state of maintenance to a state of construction. This convincing argument is provided by the localized rise of insulin, like growth factor 1, which we call IGF-1. While your systemic levels of growth factors may naturally decline as the years pass, the local environment within the muscle tissue remains remarkably responsive and capable of significant adaptation. When you achieve that high-resolution mechanical tension we discussed, the muscle fibers themselves release IGF-1 directly into the surrounding space. This acts as a powerful local beacon that speaks directly to the cell in its native tongue. It sensitizes the specific area to the circulating nutrients in your blood, effectively telling the rest of the body that this specific muscle is the current priority for energy and resources. Even if your overall hormonal profile is not what it was at age 20, this localized surge creates a youthful environment exactly where it is needed most. It bridges the gap between the external lift and the internal response, ensuring that the message of growth is heard loud and clear by the foreman of the cell. Once IGF-1 binds to its receptors, it sets off a magnificent chain reaction known as the cascade of synthesis. This is the absolute goal of reversing the effects of the sarcopenic drift. The signal travels from the surface of the cell deep into the interior, where it finally activates the mTORC1 complex with authority. Once activated, this foreman begins the intensive process of ribosome biogenesis. Ribosomes are the tiny protein factories within your cells that actually assemble new muscle tissue from available amino acids. By increasing the number and the efficiency of these factories, you are effectively upgrading the industrial capacity of your body. You are not just trying to repair minor damage. You are literally building a larger and more robust infrastructure to handle future physical demands. This is the true definition of anabolic reactivation. It is a controlled and deliberate physiological event that transforms a stagnant biological state into a dynamic engine of restoration and functional power. However, this process does not happen in a vacuum. Your body also possesses natural biological brakes designed to prevent excessive muscle growth, and the most prominent of these is a protein called myostatin. As we move past age 40, the levels of these inhibitory proteins often increase, acting like an invisible hand holding back your progress and muting your hardest efforts. They are the silent partners of the sarcopenic drift, working to ensure that the body stays within a narrow and conservative range of tissue mass to save energy. But here is the power of the precision stimulus. A robust and sustained activation of the mTORC1 pathway has the unique ability to effectively override these genetic inhibitors. When the growth signal is strong enough and high enough in resolution, it mutes the influence of myostatin. It tells the cellular machinery that the demand for new tissue is so great that the usual restrictions must be set aside for the sake of survival and adaptation. You are teaching your body that its previous limits are no longer applicable to this new high-resolution reality you have created. We must also understand the specific intracellular timing of this activation, as it differs greatly from the immediate sensations of training. Unlike the fleeting pump you feel during your session, the true work of mTORC1 happens in the quiet, restorative hours that follow your training. This is not an instantaneous transformation, but a slow and methodical reconstruction of your physical self. The repair window for the over 40 trainee is a critical period that can last for many hours or even days. It is during this time that the ribosomes are most active, weaving new strands of protein into the existing architecture of the muscle fiber. If the stimulus was precise and the signaling pathway was successfully cleared, this window remains open for a longer duration, allowing for a more complete recovery and significant growth. You must treat this period of recovery with the same respect as the workout itself. The master regulator is working, the factories are humming, and the transition from a mismatched signal to a precision biological reality is finally taking place within the very core of your being. This restoration of the mTORC1 and IGF-1 axis is the fundamental pivot point where the body stops its slow drift toward atrophy and begins the definitive climb back toward long-term vitality and structural strength. As the master regulator within the fiber reaches its peak activation, a second and more profound event begins to unfold along the periphery of the muscle tissue. Beyond the internal synthesis of protein, the mature trainee must now call upon a hidden reservoir of biological potential known as satellite cells. These are the stem cells of the muscular world, small and quiet sentinels that reside between the plasma membrane and the basal lamina of your muscle fibers. For years, as the sarcopenic drift took hold, these cells likely remained in a state of deep cellular sleep, a condition known as quiescence. They were present, but they were unresponsive to the noisy and unfocused signals of general exercise. However, the precision stimulus you have applied, the high-resolution mechanical tension, and the localized surge of insulin like growth factor 1, acts as a clarion call that pierces through their dormant state. This is the moment of satellite cell recruitment, a literal awakening where these cells begin to proliferate and migrate toward the sites of mechanical stress. When these cells wake up, they do something remarkable. They fuse with the existing muscle fiber and donate their own nuclei to the collective. This is a critical biological victory because each nucleus can only govern a specific volume of cytoplasm, a concept known as the myonuclear domain. By increasing the number of nuclei within a fiber, you are effectively increasing the local management capacity for protein synthesis. Imagine each nucleus as a conductor of a small orchestra. Without enough conductors, the music of growth becomes chaotic and eventually falls silent. By recruiting satellite cells, you are placing new conductors into the fiber, ensuring that every section of the muscle is playing the same harmonious tune of synthesis. You are adding more foremen to the factory floor, allowing the fiber to expand and maintain a larger amount of functional tissue than it ever could before. This is not just a temporary increase in size, it is a fundamental expansion of the biological ceiling for your physical strength. For the trainee over 40, this recruitment is the difference between a fleeting pump and a permanent structural upgrade. In this process of reconstruction, the quality of the new tissue is far more important than sheer volume. In youth, it is common to see sarcoplasmic hypertrophy, where the muscle fills with fluid and metabolic fuel, creating a look of temporary inflation. But for the mature body, the priority must be myofibrillar hypertrophy. This is the synthesis of the actual contractile proteins, the actin and myosin filaments. By focusing on this high-density growth, you are building a muscle that is fundamentally more efficient and metabolically active. This functional protein does not just occupy space. It serves as a robust engine for movement and a critical shield against the systemic decline of aging. It creates a physical foundation that feels dense and solid to the touch, a reflection of the structural integrity being restored from the inside out. This ensures that the growth is uniform and sustainable, preventing the lopsided development that often leads to injury in the mature athlete. This remodeling also addresses one of the most significant casualties of the sarcopenic drift: the loss of fast-twitch muscle fibers. Known as type 2 fibers, these are the units responsible for power, speed, and efficient glucose disposal. As we age, these fibers are often the first to atrophy, leading to a loss of physical reactive capacity. However, through precision stimulus, we can trigger a conversion toward type 2 of fibers, which combine the power of fast-twitch tissue with the endurance of slow-twitch tissue. This conversion restores your ability to move with intent and authority. It also turns your muscles back into a highly effective glucose sink, improving metabolic health by allowing your body to process carbohydrates with far greater efficiency. You are reclaiming the metabolic flexibility that defined your younger years. This shift toward type 2 of fibers is particularly important for maintaining balance and preventing the slow decline in coordination that often accompanies aging. These fibers are the bridge between raw strength and sustained activity. They represent a more versatile version of yourself, capable of both sudden bursts of power and the steady work required for long-term health. As these new proteins are woven into the fiber, the basal lamina, the layer of connective tissue that wraps each fiber, begins to undergo its own restoration. It becomes reinforced, creating a more stable and resilient architecture for the entire muscle. This is what we might call the second intimacy, a deep and internal hardening of your physical foundation. You are no longer just training to change how you look. You are training to change how your body is built at a structural level. This reinforced casing allows the muscle to transmit force more effectively and protects the internal machinery from the wear and tear of daily life. It is a biological armor that grows stronger with every precise application of tension. There is a quiet dignity in the muscle built during this stage of life. While the gains of a 20-year-old may come quickly and fade just as fast, the muscle tissue synthesized through the recruitment of satellite cells is remarkably stable. Because you have added permanent nuclei to your fibers, the blueprints for that strength remain even during periods of rest. This is the durability of mature tissue. It is a slow, methodical accumulation of structural power that reflects a life of discipline and precision. You are moving beyond the fragility of the sarcopenic drift and entering a phase of biological permanence. Your body is no longer a fading memory of what it once was, but a sophisticated and high-resolution manifestation of your current will. The foundation is set, the cells are active, and the remodeling is well underway. The structural changes occurring within your muscle fibers do not exist in a vacuum. To sustain the new protein synthesis and the newly recruited satellite cell nuclei, the mature trainee must also address the metabolic infrastructure that fuels these complex processes. This is where we encounter the vital role of mitochondrial biogenesis, a process coordinated by a master regulator protein known as PGC1-alpha. If mTORC1 is the master builder responsible for the construction of new muscle tissue, then PGC1-alpha is the lead power engineer, ensuring the site has a reliable and efficient energy supply. In the over 40 body, mitochondria often become less efficient and fewer in number, a state that contributes directly to the heavy fatigue and slow recovery that characterizes the sarcopenic drift. But through precision stimulus, we trigger the birth of new mitochondria, the cellular power plants that convert nutrients into the chemical energy required for muscular contraction and repair. This increase in mitochondrial density is essential because muscle growth is an energetically expensive endeavor. Your body will not invest in new tissue if it cannot afford the metabolic cost of maintaining it. By activating PGC1-alpha, you are telling your system that it is safe to expand, providing the energetic green light for long-term adaptation and cellular vitality. This internal power upgrade is supported by a significant expansion of the vascular layer. As you provide high-quality stimulus, your body initiates a process called angiogenesis, which is the creation of new capillary networks surrounding the individual muscle fibers. Think of this as a major upgrade to the delivery roads and waste management systems of your physical state. These microscopic blood vessels are the channels through which life-sustaining oxygen and vital amino acids reach the sites of repair. For the mature trainee, this increased capillary density is an absolute game-changer. It ensures that the localized surge of insulin like growth factor 1 and the raw materials needed for the mTORC1 cascade are delivered with precision and speed. Furthermore, this improved blood flow facilitates the rapid removal of metabolic byproducts, reducing the chronic systemic inflammation that often hampers recovery in the post-40 years. You are not just building muscle. You are building the intricate plumbing system that allows that muscle to thrive and recover with a level of efficiency that rivals your younger self. This restoration of the muscle tissue has profound systemic benefits that ripple throughout your entire physiology. By reactivating the muscle and increasing its myofibrillar density, you are essentially turning your body back into a highly effective glucose sink. In a state of training stagnation, the muscles often become resistant to the signals of insulin, leading to elevated blood sugar and increased fat storage. However, as you recruit satellite cells and rebuild functional protein, your muscles regain their hunger for glucose. They become the primary destination for the carbohydrates you consume, pulling sugar out of the bloodstream to be used as fuel or stored as glycogen. This improved insulin sensitivity is a powerful metabolic byproduct of the reactivation process. It lowers systemic inflammation and optimizes your hormonal environment, creating a virtuous cycle where better muscle health leads to better overall health. The muscle is no longer a passive passenger in your biological journey. It is once again the center of your metabolic network, actively regulating your energy balance. We must also redefine the temporal nature of your progress by understanding the 72-hour window. In your 20s, the window of protein synthesis after a workout might have been short and intense, allowing for rapid daily recovery. For the trainee over 40, the process of reconstruction is a multi-day marathon rather than a sprint. This 72-hour window is the critical period during which the mitochondrial health we have discussed dictates the speed and quality of your recovery. During these 3 days following a precision stimulus, your body is working tirelessly behind the scenes to weave new fibers, clear out cellular debris, and reinforce the basal lamina. It is during this extended window that the synergy of your biological systems becomes most apparent. The new mitochondria provide the energy, the expanded vascular network delivers the supplies, and the sensitized mTORC1 pathway directs the assembly. This is why the mature trainee must respect the rhythm of their own biology, allowing for the deep and thorough reconstruction that precision training demands. Ultimately, what you are experiencing is a comprehensive synergy of systems. The muscle fiber is not an island. It is the hub of a complex and interconnected metabolic web that is being systematically upgraded. Each element, the signaling hormones, the dormant stem cells, the energy-producing mitochondria, and the delivery pathways of the blood, is working in concert to reverse the effects of the sarcopenic drift. You are moving from a state of biological fragmentation toward a state of integrated strength. This is the hallmark of the post-40 anabolic reactivation. It is a transition from surviving to thriving, where every lift and every recovery period serves a clear and definite purpose. You are building a more resilient, higher-resolution version of yourself, one where the physical foundation is supported by a robust and efficient metabolic network. The static is finally clearing, the signals are sharp, and the internal environment is now perfectly primed for the final manifestation of your true physical potential. As the complex internal symphony of the mTORC1 axis, satellite cell recruitment, and mitochondrial biogenesis reaches its crescendo, the mature trainee begins to witness the undeniable transformation of their physical reality. This is the stage where the invisible cellular labor manifests as observable outcomes in the mirror and in the gym. The first and most striking sign of reactivation is a significant increase in resting muscle tone. Even when you are not actively engaged in exercise, your muscles feel firmer, denser, and more substantial. This is not the transient pump of a high-volume workout, but rather a fundamental shift in the myofibrillar density of your tissue. Your body is no longer holding on to soft, inefficient structures. Instead, it is becoming a structurally sound and dense biological machine. You will notice that the weight of daily life feels significantly lighter, and the chronic, nagging joint pain that once defined your training sessions begins to dissipate. This happens because your muscles are finally doing their job, absorbing the mechanical stress and shielding your connective tissues from the impact. The sarcopenic drift is not just being halted, it is being actively pushed back by a system that has regained its functional integrity. The aesthetic evolution of the over 40 body under precision stimulus is distinct from the growth seen in younger years. Rather than the rapid, fluid-based inflation often sought by the inexperienced, you are achieving a look of permanence and profound density. This is the critical difference between quantity and quality. The myofibrillar protein synthesis we have unlocked creates a hard, compact appearance that reflects the structural reinforcement of your fibers. Your muscles possess a certain gravity, a visual weight that communicates true resilience and strength. This physical shift is accompanied by a deep and meaningful psychological transition. You are no longer fighting a desperate, losing battle against the passage of time. The anxiety of stagnation is replaced by the calm confidence of a master craftsman who understands his tools. You have moved from the frantic effort of trying to reclaim your youth to the sophisticated practice of optimizing your current state. You are now working in perfect harmony with your biology, speaking the high-resolution language of mechanotransduction that your cells finally understand. One of the most remarkable aspects of this new biological reality is the sheer durability of the adaptation. Unlike the fleeting gains of youth that can vanish after a few weeks of inactivity, the myonuclear additions earned through satellite cell recruitment are remarkably persistent. Because these new nuclei have become a permanent part of your muscle fibers, the increased capacity for protein synthesis remains with you for the long term. Even if life necessitates a brief break from training, your body maintains its upgraded blueprint. You are building a foundation that is fundamentally more stable. This is the ultimate reward for the precision and patience required to overcome anabolic resistance. You have not just added mass, You have upgraded the very hardware of your physical existence. Your muscle fibers are now more resilient, more metabolically active, and more responsive to every signal you send them. As you look in the mirror, you see more than just a physical change. You see a body that has been restored to its role as a metabolic powerhouse. By becoming a primary glucose sink once again, your muscles are protecting your systemic health, keeping inflammation low and insulin sensitivity high. You are moving through the world with a sense of vitality that is grounded in cellular reality. This is not a temporary fix or a superficial mask. It is a deep structural reorganization of your adult self. You have navigated the complexities of the sarcopenic drift and emerged with a higher resolution version of your own potential. The forward motion you feel is real, supported by the restored mTORC1 and IGF-1 axis and fueled by an efficient mitochondrial network. You are not reclaiming your youth. You are building something entirely new and far more resilient. You are constructing a version of yourself that is better equipped for the decades ahead than you ever were in your 20s. This journey of anabolic reactivation is a testament to the fact that the human body remains a highly adaptable and sophisticated machine, provided it is given the correct sequence of signals. The foundational work is complete, but the refinement continues. In the next phase of our exploration, we will dive into the specific protocols of nutrient timing designed to further crush anabolic resistance and maximize the 72-hour window of reconstruction. For now, acknowledge the shift that has occurred within you. The static of the past is gone, and the path forward is clear. You are standing on the threshold of a new physical era. Your body has been reactivated.